Eliza Jane's heart stood frozen in her chest as she watched Nathan Kane, the man who was supposed to become her husband, walk away from the church without a backward glance. The white ribbons decorating the small wooden chapel in Silverwood Creek fluttered in the afternoon breeze, mocking the celebration that would never be, while stunned wedding guests murmured behind her. "Nathan." She called, her voice breaking as she gathered her ivory skirts and rushed down the church steps. But he was already mounting his stallion, his broad shoulders stiff beneath his finest black coat, his expression hidden beneath the brim of his hat. The year was 1875, and Eliza had just turned 22. She'd spent the last 3 years waiting for Nathan to establish his ranch so they could marry properly. Now, as dust kicked up from beneath his horse's hooves, she wondered if those years had been wasted on a man who couldn't commit even when standing at the altar. "Let him go," her father said gently, placing a weathered hand on her shoulder. "A man who runs ain't worth chasing." But Edward Jane didn't understand. Nobody did. Eliza had seen the fear in Nathan's eyes just before he turned away, not the fear of commitment that the townsfolk would surely gossip about for months to come, but something deeper, something that had haunted him since his return from a cattle drive 3 weeks earlier. The wedding guests dispersed in uncomfortable silence, leaving Eliza standing in her wedding gown as rain clouds gathered on the horizon, mirroring the storm in her heart. "I'll wait," she whispered to herself, a promise carried away by the prairie wind. 2 days after Nathan's departure, Eliza sat at her bedroom window, staring out at the dusty main street of Silverwood Creek. Her wedding dress hung like a ghost in the corner of the room, a reminder of promises unfulfilled. Her mother had suggested putting it away, but Eliza couldn't bear to. Not yet. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Eliza, dear." Her mother, Martha Jane, entered carrying a tray of tea. "You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry, Mama." Martha set the tray down and sat beside her daughter. Samuel Wilson saw Nathan heading north toward Deadwood. Said he looked like a man being chased by the devil himself. Eliza's fingers tightened around the handkerchief in her lap, the one with Nathan's initials she had embroidered as a wedding gift. Something happened on that cattle drive. He wasn't the same when he came back. Men get cold feet, dear. It doesn't excuse what he did, leaving you standing there in front of the whole town, but no. Eliza shook her head firmly. Nathan isn't like that. He asked me to marry him 2 years ago, and he meant it. Something changed. Something scared him. Martha sighed, patting Eliza's hand. Whatever his reasons, you need to think about your future now. Robert Taylor has always shown interest, and he owns the mercantile. Mama, please. Eliza stood abruptly. I don't want to discuss this. After her mother left, Eliza retrieved a small wooden box from beneath her bed. Inside was a letter Nathan had sent during his last cattle drive. She had read it so many times the creases were beginning to tear. My dearest Eliza, it began, I count the days until I can make you my wife. This drive should set us up proper, with enough to expand the north pasture. I dream of you every night, of the family we'll build together. The letter continued with plans and promises, each word contradicting his actions at the altar. Whatever had driven Nathan away, Eliza was certain of one thing: it wasn't lack of love. A week passed with no word from Nathan. The townsfolk treated Eliza with a mixture of pity and curiosity that made her daily walk to the schoolhouse, where she taught, almost unbearable. Children whispered behind their slates, no doubt repeating conversations overheard from their parents. Miss Jane, one of her students asked during arithmetic, is it true Mr. Kane ran away because he found a prettier lady in Deadwood? Hush, Timothy, she responded, keeping her voice steady. That's quite enough, back to your sums. That afternoon, Eliza made a decision. After school, she walked directly to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Daniel Morgan looked up from his desk when she entered, his weathered face softening with sympathy. Miss Eliza, what can I do for you today? I need to know what happened on that cattle drive. Nathan came back changed, and now he's gone. Something isn't right, the sheriff sighed, gesturing for her to sit. I didn't want to worry you with rumors, especially with the wedding coming up, but there was trouble on that drive. The Kane outfit lost 2 men near the Wyoming territory. Nathan wouldn't talk much about it, but my deputy heard from one of the hands that they had a run-in with some outlaws. Outlaws? Eliza's stomach tightened. Was Nathan hurt? Not physically, as far as I know, but Jake Palmer, you remember him, used to work for your father. He was killed. Nathan and Jake were close since boyhood. Eliza pressed a hand to her mouth. He never told me. Why wouldn't he tell me? Sheriff Morgan shook his head. Men like Nathan, they carry their burdens alone. It's their way. Did they catch the outlaws? No, madam, but there's more. He hesitated. The day before your wedding, Nathan came to see me. He seemed troubled, asked if I'd heard anything about strangers in town. I told him we had the usual travelers passing through, nothing suspicious. He didn't explain, just nodded and left. A cold realization settled in Eliza's chest. You think he left to protect me, that those outlaws might come after him, after anyone close to him? The sheriff didn't confirm or deny it, but his eyes told her enough. Nathan Kane is a proud man, Miss Eliza. Whatever his reasons, I'm sure he believed he was doing right. As Eliza walked home, the sheriff's words echoed in her mind. If Nathan had left to protect her, then he was facing whatever danger threatened them alone. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. That night, she wrote in her journal, I will wait for you, Nathan Kane. However long it takes, I will wait. The summer heat gave way to autumn chill as September turned to October. Eliza maintained her routine, teaching at the schoolhouse, helping her mother with household chores, attending Sunday services. But every evening she walked to the edge of town and watched the northern road, waiting for a figure on horseback to appear. You can't put your life on hold forever, her father told her one evening as she prepared for her daily vigil. It's been nearly 2 months, Eliza. I know how long it's been, Pa. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders against the cooling air. But I also know Nathan. If he's alive, he'll come back. Edward Jane's expression softened. And if he's not, the question hung in the air, a possibility Eliza refused to consider. Then I'll know that too, eventually. But until then, I wait. Her father watched her with concern but didn't try to stop her as she walked out the door. At her usual spot at the edge of town, Eliza settled onto a large rock overlooking the road. From here, she could see several miles of the winding trail that led north toward Deadwood. The setting sun cast long shadows across the landscape, painting the world in amber and gold. Mind if I join you? Eliza turned to find Sheriff Morgan approaching, leading his horse. Of course not, Sheriff. He tied his horse to a nearby tree and sat beside her. Got some news today. Thought you should hear it from me first. Her heart skipped a beat. Is it Nathan? Not directly. The sheriff removed his hat, turning it in his hands. Remember those outlaws I mentioned? The ones from the cattle drive. Word is they've been causing trouble up near Deadwood. A stagecoach robbery last week, a ranch burned out the week before. And Nathan, no sign of him. But there's talk that someone's been hunting these outlaws. 3 of them found dead in the last month. Clean shots, professional-like, Eliza considered this. You think it might be Nathan? I think a man with Nathan's skills, grieving a friend and worried about the safety of his fiancé, might take it upon himself to eliminate a threat. He placed his hat back on his head. Just thought you should know. After the sheriff left, Eliza remained at her post until darkness made it impossible to see the road. The idea that Nathan might be systematically hunting down dangerous men both frightened and strengthened her resolve. If he was fighting to come back to her, she would continue to wait. As November arrived, the temperature dropped further. Eliza's mother grew increasingly concerned about her evening vigils. You'll catch your death out there, Martha fretted, adding another log to the fireplace. At least wait until spring to resume this waiting. I can't explain it, Mama, but I feel like he's coming back soon. I need to be there when he does. Martha studied her daughter's face. You always were stubborn, just like your father. At least take Sarah with you. Sarah was their neighbor's daughter, a sensible 16-year-old who often helped Martha with household tasks. Eliza agreed to the compromise, though she doubted Nathan would appear if others were present. Still, having Sarah's company made the cold evenings more bearable. One particularly cold evening in mid-November, as they were preparing to head back to town, Sarah pointed to the darkening sky. "Looks like rain coming. We should hurry." Eliza glanced up at the heavy clouds gathering overhead. "You go ahead, I'll be right behind you." "Miss Eliza, your mother will have my hide if I leave you out here in a storm. Just a few more minutes. Please, Sarah." The girl hesitated but finally nodded. 5 minutes, then I'm coming back with your father if needed." Alone again, Eliza pulled her coat tighter against the rising wind. The first drops of rain began to fall, cold against her cheeks. She should leave, she knew, but something kept her rooted to the spot. A flash of lightning illuminated the landscape, and in that brief moment of brightness, Eliza saw a figure on horseback approaching on the road from the north. Her heart pounded as she strained to see through the gathering darkness. Another flash revealed the rider was closer now, his form bent against the driving rain that had begun to fall in earnest. Eliza stood, her legs shaky beneath her. "Nathan," she called, her voice lost in a crash of thunder. The rider continued forward, and as he drew nearer, Eliza could make out more details: a broad-shouldered man on a dark horse, moving at a steady pace despite the worsening weather. When he was 50 yards away, another lightning flash confirmed what her heart already knew: Nathan Kane had returned. Eliza ran forward, heedless of the mud splashing onto her skirts. The rain plastered her hair to her face and neck, but she barely noticed as she reached the road. Nathan pulled his horse to a stop and dismounted slowly, as if every movement caused him pain. His face, partially hidden by the brim of his hat, looked thinner, harder than when he'd left. A scar that hadn't been there before cut across his left cheek. They stood facing each other in the pouring rain, neither speaking. Then Nathan removed his hat, revealing eyes that held a mixture of exhaustion, wariness, and unmistakable love. "You're still here," he said, his voice rough from disuse or emotion, perhaps both. "I told you I would wait," Eliza replied, standing her ground despite the urge to throw herself into his arms. "You left me at the altar, Nathan Kane." He flinched at her words. "I know, I can never make that right. You can try by telling me why." Nathan looked over his shoulder, a habit Eliza realized must have developed during his months away. "Not here. It's not safe yet." Before she could question him further, hoofbeats sounded from the direction of town. Sarah had made good on her promise, returning with Eliza Jane and Sheriff Morgan. "Nathan Kane," Edward called as they approached, his voice hard with anger. "You've got some explaining to do, boy." Nathan nodded, replacing his hat. "Yes, sir, I do." Sheriff Morgan dismounted, his experienced eyes taking in Nathan's appearance. "Let's get everyone inside before this discussion continues. Manny's saloon has a back room we can use." As they rode toward town, Nathan kept his horse close to Eliza's, though he remained silent. She studied him from the corner of her eye, noting the new hardness in his jaw, the vigilant way he scanned their surroundings. This was still her Nathan, but changed in ways she had yet to understand. The rain continued to pour as they reached Manny Rodriguez's saloon on the edge of town. The Mexican proprietor, a friend to both the Jane and Kane families, quickly ushered them into a private back room when he saw Nathan's condition. "Dios mío, you look like you wrestled with the devil himself," Manny commented, bringing a bottle of whiskey and glasses. "I'll have Rosa bring some food." When they were alone, Eliza, Nathan, her father, and the sheriff Nathan finally began to speak. "The cattle drive to Cheyenne started normal enough," he said, accepting a glass of whiskey but not drinking it. "Good price for the herd, no major problems." It was on the way back that things went wrong. He described an encounter with a gang of outlaws led by a man named Victor Thornton. "They ambushed us near a creek crossing, killed Jake Palmer and Tom Wilkins before we knew what was happening. We fought them off, but not before one of them recognized me." "Recognized you?" Sheriff Morgan leaned forward. "How's that?" "From before I came to Silverwood." Nathan's eyes met Eliza's briefly. "I never told you everything about my past. Before I settled here, I worked as a bounty hunter for a spell. Brought in Victor Thornton's brother 3 years ago. He hanged in Santa Fe." Eliza's mind reeled. She knew Nathan had traveled widely before purchasing his ranch outside Silverwood, but he'd never mentioned bounty hunting. Victor swore he'd destroy everything I cared about, Nathan continued, said he'd been looking for me for years. When we got back to Silverwood, I started seeing signs they were watching the ranch, watching the town. The day before our wedding, I found this pinned to the door of my home. He reached into his pocket and produced a folded paper. Sheriff Morgan took it, reading aloud. A bride in mourning makes a prettier picture. It was signed with a drawing of a thorny rose. Thornton's calling card, Nathan explained. I knew then that if I married you, they'd target you first. I couldn't let that happen, couldn't put you in danger. He finally looked directly at Eliza. So I left, figured if I drew them away from Silverwood, I could end this once and for all. By hunting them down, the sheriff stated rather than asked. Nathan nodded. Victor and his core group 5 men, I've accounted for 4 of them. And Victor? Edward Jane asked, his anger now tempered with understanding, still out there. But I've weakened his position, made him desperate, that's why I came back. Nathan's gaze returned to Eliza. To warn you. He might try to strike here, thinking to draw me out. Eliza, who had remained silent throughout Nathan's explanation, finally spoke. You should have told me, we could have faced this together. And put your life at risk, I couldn't do that. So instead, you left me humiliated in front of the entire town, wondering if you were dead or alive, if you'd ever loved me at all. Her voice rose despite her efforts to remain calm. You made that choice for me, Nathan. You decided my heartbreaking was preferable to my knowing the truth. Nathan set his untouched whiskey on the table. I deserve that, I deserve worse, but I did what I thought would keep you safe. Sheriff Morgan cleared his throat. What's your plan now, Kane? Victor's down to his last few men. They'll come looking for me, and I'd rather face them on ground I know, with people I trust at my back. He looked to the sheriff. If you'll have me. You're still a citizen of this county, Morgan replied. And it sounds like you've been cleaning up a mess that would have found its way here eventually. I'll deputize you temporary-like, give this some official standing. Edward Jane had been watching his daughter throughout the conversation. Eliza, you've been waiting all these months. What do you say to all this? Eliza met Nathan's gaze steadily. I say that you're not facing this alone anymore. Whether you like it or not, Nathan Kane, your problems became mine the moment you asked me to marry you. And if this Thornton wants a war, then he'll find he's made an enemy of the Jane family too. A flash of admiration crossed Nathan's face, followed quickly by concern. Eliza, no, you don't understand how dangerous these men are. I understand that you left to protect me. I understand that you've been fighting alone for months, and I understand that I am not some delicate flower to be sheltered from the harsh realities of life. She stood, her resolve strengthening with every word. We face this together or not at all, Sheriff Morgan chuckled softly. I'd say the lady has made her position clear. Nathan looked from Eliza to her father, who gave a resigned nod. She's got her mother's spirit and my stubbornness. You won't win this one, son. For the first time since his return, a ghost of a smile crossed Nathan's face. I'm beginning to see that. The next morning, Silverwood Creek buzzed with the news of Nathan Kane's return. Sheriff Morgan called a town meeting to explain the situation and organize the town's defense. Eliza stood beside Nathan as he addressed the gathered townsfolk, her presence a clear statement to anyone watching. These men are dangerous, Nathan warned the assembly. They won't hesitate to hurt anyone associated with me. If any of you want to leave town until this is resolved, I wouldn't blame you. Several families with young children decided to visit relatives in neighboring towns, but most of Silverwood's residents chose to stay. This is our home, declared George Peterson, the blacksmith. We don't run from trouble. As the meeting dispersed, Nathan pulled Eliza aside. I need to check on my ranch, see what state it's in after being abandoned for months. Will you come with me? There's more I need to say to you, away from prying ears. An hour later, they rode side by side toward the Kane Ranch, located 3 miles outside of town. The rain had cleared overnight, leaving the world washed clean and smelling of damp earth. Neither spoke much during the journey, both aware of the weight of unspoken words between them. The ranch came into view, a modest but well-built house, a large barn, and several outbuildings. Fields stretched beyond where Nathan's cattle would normally graze. Samuel Wilson's been looking after the stock, Eliza explained as they approached. Most are in the north pasture now. Nathan nodded gratefully. I'll have to thank him. I left in such a hurry, didn't make proper arrangements. They dismounted in front of the house, and Nathan unlocked the door with a key he retrieved from beneath a loose board on the porch. Inside, the house was surprisingly tidy, with only a thin layer of dust indicating its abandonment. Mrs. Wilson comes by to air it out once a week, Eliza explained, removing her gloves. I asked her to. Nathan turned to her, surprise evident in his expression. You had them look after my place, even after what I did. I told you I would wait. She moved further into the house, running her fingers along the back of a chair. Besides, I couldn't bear the thought of everything you worked so hard for falling into disrepair. Nathan watched her move through the room that should have become their home months ago. Eliza, I need to explain more about what happened, about who I was before Silverwood. She sat at the kitchen table, folding her hands in front of her. I'm listening. For the next hour, Nathan revealed the details of his past, that he'd kept hidden, how he'd begun bounty hunting after his parents were killed by outlaws, how he'd gained a reputation for tracking the worst criminals across the Western Territories, and how he'd eventually grown weary of the violence and sought a quieter life. When I settled here, bought this ranch, I thought I'd left that life behind. Meeting you, falling in love with you, that was the future I wanted. His voice grew rough with emotion. But the past has a way of finding you, no matter how far you run. Why didn't you tell me any of this before? I was afraid, he met her gaze directly. Afraid you'd see me differently if you knew the things I'd done, the men I'd killed, and later I was afraid Thornton would hurt you to get to me. Eliza considered his words carefully. I understand your fear. But Nathan, relationships, marriages, they're built on trust. How can I trust you won't make decisions for both of us again without consulting me? Nathan moved to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in his. I've had months to think about what I did wrong. Leaving you at the altar, no matter my reasons, was unforgivable. I won't ask for forgiveness, but I will promise this. No more secrets, no more decisions that affect us both made alone. Eliza looked down at their joined hands, his calloused and weathered, her smaller but equally strong in their own way. I need time, Nathan. I believe your intentions were good, but you broke my heart that day. He nodded, accepting her words. I understand. Whatever time you need, I'll wait. Just as you waited for me, the moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching horses. Nathan was on his feet instantly, drawing his revolver as he moved to the window. It's just the sheriff, he said with relief, holstering his weapon. And your father. The two men dismounted in the yard, and Eliza Jane carried a large parcel wrapped in oilcloth. Thought you might need these, the sheriff said as they entered the house. He nodded to the package Edward set on the table. Nathan unwrapped it to reveal a Winchester rifle, a shotgun, and several boxes of ammunition. Figured with trouble coming, you should be properly armed, Edward explained. These were Jake Palmer's. His sister said he'd want you to have them. Nathan ran his hand reverently over the rifle. Thank you, this means a lot. Sheriff Morgan removed his hat. We've got men watching the roads into town. If Thornton shows up, we'll know. He'll come, Nathan said grimly. It's just a matter of when. The four of them spent the afternoon planning defenses for both the town and the ranch. By the time Eliza and her father prepared to return to town, the sun was beginning to set. You should stay in town tonight, Eliza told Nathan as they stood by the horses. It's not safe out here alone. I'll be fine. Need to reacquaint myself with the place. His eyes softened as he looked at her. But thank you for caring after everything. Impulsively, Eliza reached up and touched the new scar on his cheek. Be careful, Nathan. I didn't wait all these months just to lose you again. He caught her hand, pressing it more firmly against his face. I'm not going anywhere this time, I promise. As Eliza rode back to town with her father, she realized that despite her hurt and anger, her heart had already begun to forgive Nathan. Understanding his reasons didn't erase the pain of his abandonment, but it did provide context that made forgiveness possible. He's a good man who made a bad choice, Edward said, seeming to read her thoughts. The question is whether you can live with that choice, knowing why he made it. Eliza watched the setting sun paint the landscape in deepening shades of gold and crimson. I think I can, Pa, but we have to survive Thornton first. 3 tense days passed with no sign of Victor Thornton or his remaining men. Nathan split his time between his ranch and town, working with the sheriff to prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Eliza resumed teaching at the schoolhouse, though many parents kept their children home as a precaution. On the 4th day, a stranger rode into Silverwood shortly after noon. He was a tall, lean man with a shock of white blonde hair and cold blue eyes. He rode directly to the saloon, where he ordered whiskey and began asking casual questions about Nathan Kane. The bartender, following Sheriff Morgan's instructions to report any strangers, sent a young boy to fetch the sheriff. By the time Morgan arrived, the stranger was playing cards with 2 local miners. "Afternoon," Sheriff Morgan said, approaching the table. "Don't believe we've met." "I'm Sheriff Morgan." The stranger smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "James Smith, just passing through looking for work." "What kind of work you do, Mr. Smith?" "This and that. Cattle, driving, mining. I'm handy with horses." The sheriff nodded thoughtfully. "We don't have much work this time of year, I'm afraid. Where you coming from?" "Up north." "Deadwood Way." Morgan's deputy, positioned near the door, caught the sheriff's eye and gave a slight nod confirmation that Nathan had been alerted and was on his way. "Well, Mr. Smith, we like to know who's in our town. Mind if I see your saddlebags? Just routine." The stranger's smile disappeared. "Actually, I do mind. A man's possessions are his own business." The atmosphere in the saloon tensed as the miners quietly excused themselves from the card game and moved away. "In most places, maybe," Sheriff Morgan agreed, "but Silverwood's been having some trouble lately, makes us cautious about strangers." The saloon doors swung open and Nathan entered, his eyes immediately finding the stranger. Recognition flashed across both men's faces. "Hello, Eddie," Nathan said calmly. "Still riding with your brother, I see." The man called Smith or Eddie stood slowly, his hand hovering near his holstered revolver. "Kane, Victor said you might be hiding in some backwater town. Didn't believe it myself." "Not hiding anymore. Where is Victor?" Eddie's lip curled in a sneer. "Close enough." "He's been looking forward to meeting your pretty bride. Shame about the wedding getting called off." Nathan's expression hardened. "Your brother's not going to touch her, or anyone else in this town. We'll see about that." Eddie's hand moved toward his gun. "I wouldn't," Sheriff Morgan warned, his own weapon already drawn. "You're outnumbered, son." Eddie hesitated, then relaxed his posture with a chuckle. "Just having a friendly conversation, Sheriff. No law against that, is there?" "There's a law against threatening citizens of my town," Morgan replied. "I think it's best if you move on, Mr. Smith, or Thornton, whatever your name is." Eddie retrieved his hat from the table. "I'll be going, but Kane," he fixed Nathan with a cold stare. "Victor wants you to know he's coming for what's his, an eye for an eye." After he left, Nathan turned to the sheriff. "He'll report back to Victor. They'll come in force now." "How many do you reckon?" "Victor, Eddie, and probably 3 or 4 others. What's left of his gang." Nathan's jaw tightened. "We need to get Eliza somewhere safe." "The schoolhouse just let out," Morgan said. "She should be heading home." But when they reached the Jane residence, Martha met them at the door with worried eyes. "Eliza's not here." Sarah said she was going to stop by the dressmaker's, but that was over an hour ago. Cold dread settled in Nathan's stomach. "Check the dressmaker's," he told the deputy. "I'll try the general store." As they split up to search, a young boy came running down the street. Sheriff Morgan." He called. "Miss Jane told me to give you this." He thrust a crumpled note into the sheriff's hands. Morgan read it quickly, his expression grim. "It's from Thornton. He has Eliza. Wants you to come alone to Dawson's abandoned mine 2 miles south of town." He handed the note to Nathan. "Says if anyone else shows up, he'll kill her." Nathan read the note, his hands shaking with rage. "I should have known. Eddie was just a distraction." "You can't go alone," Edward Jane protested. "It's suicide. If I don't go alone, they'll kill her." Nathan's voice was deadly calm. I'm not losing her, not when she's waited all this time for me. Sheriff Morgan placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. We'll figure something out, but you're not facing them alone. As darkness fell, Nathan prepared to ride to the abandoned mine. Despite the protests of Sheriff Morgan and Eliza Jane, he insisted on approaching alone as Thornton had demanded. Victor wants me, he explained as he checked his weapons. He'll expect a trick, but his focus will be on me. That gives you a chance to get into position. The plan they'd devised was risky. Sheriff Morgan would lead several men to approach the mine from the west, using a little-known trail that wound through the hills. Eliza Jane and 2 other townsmen would circle around to the south. They would wait for Nathan's signal 3 rapid gunshots before moving in. If I don't get a chance to signal, wait 1 hour, then come in anyway, Nathan instructed. But your priority is getting Eliza out safely. Don't worry about me. You bring my daughter home, Edward said gruffly. Both of you? Nathan mounted his horse. I intend to, sir. The ride to Dawson's mine took less than 30 minutes. The abandoned operation sat in a shallow valley, its weathered structures silhouetted against the night sky. A single lantern burned in the entrance to the main shaft. Nathan approached slowly, his senses alert for any sign of an ambush. Thornton, he called when he was within earshot. I'm here just like you wanted. A figure emerged from the mine entrance, a tall man with dark hair streaked with gray and a neatly trimmed beard. Nathan Kane. After all these years, we finally meet face to face. Where's Eliza? Victor Thornton smiled coldly. The lady's inside, unharmed for now, he gestured toward the mine. Dismount and come ahead, slowly. Nathan complied, keeping his hands visible. As he approached, 4 more men appeared from the shadows, including Eddie from the saloon. All were armed. Search him, Victor ordered, and one of the men roughly patted Nathan down, removing his revolver and a knife from his boot. That's not all, Nathan said. Check my saddle. The man looked questioningly at Victor, who nodded. In the saddlebag, they found the Winchester rifle Eliza Jane had given him, bringing extra firepower, Victor commented. Smart, but not smart enough. I just want Eliza. This is between you and me. Indeed it is. Victor's voice hardened. You took my brother from me, hunted him down like an animal, and brought him in to hang. Your brother murdered 3 people, including a child, Nathan replied evenly. He earned his rope. Victor's hand shot out, striking Nathan across the face. My brother was all the family I had left. And now I've taken someone you care about, he gestured toward the mine entrance. Bring her out. 2 more men emerged, dragging Eliza between them. Her hands were bound in front of her, and she had a bruise forming on her cheek, but her eyes burned with defiance rather than fear. Nathan, she gasped when she saw him, you shouldn't have come. Of course he came, Victor said, smiling at her. Men like Kane are predictable that way. They think they're invincible until you find what they love. He grabbed Eliza's chin roughly. And you are what he loves, aren't you, Miss Jane? Nathan took a step forward, but stopped when Victor pulled a revolver and pointed it at Eliza's head. Patience, Kane, we have all night for what I have planned. Let her go, Thornton, your quarrel's with me. My quarrel is with everything you care about. Victor's eyes gleamed with malice. First I'll kill her while you watch, then I'll kill you, then I'll burn that little town to the ground. Eliza's eyes met Nathan's, and in that moment, a wordless communication passed between them. Nathan gave an almost imperceptible nod. You won't get the chance, Eliza said, and drove her knee hard into Victor's groin. As the outlaw doubled over, Nathan launched himself forward, tackling one of the men holding Eliza. In the same moment, he managed to fire 3 rapid shots from the second revolver he'd kept hidden in his coat, the signal for Sheriff Morgan and the others. Chaos erupted as Victor's men recovered from the initial surprise. Eddie fired at Nathan but missed, the bullet splintering the wooden support beam beside him. Nathan rolled behind a stack of crates, pulling Eliza with him. Are you hurt? He asked, working to untie her hands. I'm all right, she assured him. But there are at least 7 of them, Nathan. More than you thought. Gunfire peppered their position as Victor shouted orders to his men. Burn them out, don't let them escape. One of the outlaws approached their hiding place with a burning torch, intending to set fire to the crates. Nathan waited until the man was close, then burst from cover, driving his shoulder into the outlaw's midsection. They grappled for control of the torch, which fell and ignited some spilled oil on the ground. Flames spread quickly, catching on the dry timber of the mine entrance. The fire provided both danger and opportunity, illuminating the area, but also creating confusion. "Head for those rocks," Nathan told Eliza, pointing to a boulder formation 20 yards away. "I'll cover you." Using his recovered revolver, Nathan fired at the outlaws, forcing them to take cover. Eliza made it to the rocks safely, but Nathan, following behind, took a bullet to his left arm. He stumbled but kept moving, reaching the relative safety of the boulders. "You're hit," Eliza said, tearing a strip from her petticoat to bind his wound, just a graze. He winced as she tightened the makeshift bandage. "Sheriff Morgan and your father should be here any minute." As if on cue, gunfire erupted from the western ridge. Morgan and his men had arrived. More shots came from the south, signaling Eliza Jane's position. Victor Thornton, realizing he was now caught in a crossfire, shouted to his remaining men. "Kill them! Kill them all!" The firefight intensified, with bullets ricocheting off rocks and splintering wood. The fire at the mine entrance had grown, creating a wall of flame that illuminated the entire area. Through the chaos, Nathan spotted Victor making his way toward a small shed where the horses were tied. "He's trying to escape," Nathan told Eliza. "Stay here." Before she could protest, Nathan was moving again, using the rocks for cover as he circled toward the shed. He intercepted Victor just as the outlaw reached the horses. "It's over, Thornton," Nathan said, his revolver aimed steadily despite his injured arm. Victor turned slowly, his own gun still in hand. "It's not over until one of us is dead, Kane." His eyes narrowed. "My brother said you were too honorable to shoot a man in the back. Let's see if you're honorable enough to give me a fair chance. Drop the gun, you're finished." Victor's lip curled in contempt. "Like hell." He raised his weapon with lightning speed. 2 shots rang out almost simultaneously. Victor staggered backward, a look of surprise crossing his face as blood blossomed on his chest. Nathan remained standing, though Victor's bullet had grazed his side. Victor Thornton fell to his knees, his gun slipping from his fingers. "You should have killed me years ago," he gasped, "alongside my brother." "Maybe," Nathan agreed, "but I'm not a murderer, Victor. I never was." The outlaw coughed, blood speckling his lips. "No, you just bring men to justice." His voice dripped with sarcasm on the last word. Then his eyes glazed over and he collapsed forward. By the time Sheriff Morgan and the others secured the area, 3 of Thornton's men were dead, including Eddie. The remaining 4 surrendered when they realized their leader had fallen. Eliza rushed to Nathan's side as he emerged from behind the shed, supporting him when he swayed slightly from blood loss and exhaustion. "It's done," he told her, his voice hoarse from smoke and emotion. "He can't hurt you anymore, can't hurt anyone." She pressed her forehead against his chest, tears of relief flowing freely. "Take me home, Nathan. Take us both home." The return to Silverwood Creek was subdued but triumphant. Nathan's wounds, though painful, weren't life-threatening. "Doctor." Wilson treated him at the sheriff's office while the townsfolk gathered outside, eager for news. Edward and Martha Jane insisted that Nathan stay with them while he recovered, and for once, he didn't argue. As he settled into the guest room that night, Eliza brought him a cup of tea laced with whiskey. "For the pain," she explained, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Dr. Wilson said it would help you sleep." Nathan took a sip, grimacing at the strong taste. "Thank you for this and for everything today. You were braver than anyone had a right to expect." Eliza smiled softly. "I had a good teacher. Watching you walk away from our wedding was the hardest thing I've ever experienced. After surviving that, facing outlaws seemed manageable." He winced at her words. "Eliza, I know," she interrupted gently. "I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm saying I understand now why you did what you did. It was wrong, but it came from love." She reached for his hand, careful to avoid his injured arm. "The question is, where do we go from here?" Nathan looked down at their joined hands. "Wherever you want. I meant what I said at the ranch. I'll wait as long as you need. I've learned that some things some people are worth waiting for." Eliza considered his words carefully. I think we've both done enough waiting, don't you? A week later, once Nathan was strong enough to move about comfortably, Eliza suggested they visit his ranch together. The November air was crisp but not unpleasant as they rode side by side, the familiar landscape spreading around them. The ranch looked different now that Nathan had returned more alive somehow, as if the land itself had missed its master. Cattle grazed in the near pasture, the barn had been repaired, and smoke curled invitingly from the chimney of the main house. "Samuel Wilson and some of the other men have been helping me get things back in order," Nathan explained as they dismounted. "There's still work to be done, but it's coming along." Inside, the house had been thoroughly cleaned, with fresh curtains at the windows and a vase of late-blooming wildflowers on the kitchen table. "My mother's touch," Eliza said, noticing his surprise. "She said a house needs a woman's hand to truly feel like home." Nathan removed his hat, hanging it on a peg by the door, a simple action that symbolized return permanence. "Is that why you're here, to add a woman's touch?" Eliza moved to stand before him, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I'm here because this is where I belong, where we belong together." He searched her face. "Are you sure? After everything that's happened, I'm sure." She took his hands in hers. "The past months have taught me something important, Nathan. Life is too short and too precious to waste on pride or anger. You made a mistake leaving me at the altar, but you did it thinking you were protecting me. I made a mistake too, not seeing that something was troubling you in the weeks before our wedding, not demanding you share your burdens with me. You couldn't have known, no, but I could have tried harder to understand. We both have lessons to learn about trust and communication." She squeezed his hands gently. "But I want to learn those lessons together as husband and wife." Nathan's breath caught. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Eliza smiled, her eyes shining with certainty and love. "Nathan Kane, will you marry me, properly this time, with no running away and no secrets between us?" Joy spread across his face, erasing months of worry and hardship. He pulled her close, careful of his still healing wounds. "Yes," he whispered against her hair. "God, yes." They were married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at the Jane home. Unlike their first attempt, this wedding was intimate, with only close friends and family in attendance. Eliza wore a simple blue dress rather than the elaborate white gown of their previous ceremony, a practical choice that symbolized their new beginning. Sheriff Morgan stood as Nathan's best man, and Sarah as Eliza's maid of honor. When Reverend Thompson pronounced them husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in cheers and applause. "About time you made an honest woman of her," Samuel Wilson called good-naturedly, earning a playful swat from his wife. The celebration continued well into the evening, with food and dancing and more than a few emotional toasts. As the night drew to a close, Nathan and Eliza slipped away to begin the short journey to their ranch, their home. "Happy, Mrs. Kane?" Nathan asked as they rode through the starlit landscape. Eliza smiled, the simple gold band on her finger catching the moonlight. "Happier than I ever thought possible, Mr. Kane." When they reached the ranch, Nathan insisted on carrying her over the threshold despite his still healing wounds. Inside, the house glowed with welcoming lamplight, a fire crackling in the hearth. "Someone's been here," Eliza observed, noting the fresh flowers and the table set with a simple but elegant supper. Nathan chuckled. "Your mother again, I suspect. She's determined to see us properly settled." Later, as they sat before the fire, Eliza rested her head on Nathan's shoulder, content in a way she hadn't been since before he left. "Do you think we'll have peace now?" she asked softly. Nathan stroked her hair, his touch gentle. "I hope so. Thornton was the last ghost from my past that I know of. The others—" He paused. "The others I've made peace with, and if more ghosts appear, then we'll face them together." He tilted her face up to his. "No more secrets, no more running. Whatever comes, we stand together." She kissed him then, sealing the promise between them. Spring arrived in Silverwood Creek with a burst of wildflowers and new beginnings. The Kane Ranch thrived under Nathan and Eliza's care, with expanded pastures and a growing herd. Eliza had given up her teaching position to focus on the ranch, though she still tutored several children from neighboring homesteads. On a warm May morning, Eliza stood on the porch, watching Nathan work with a young colt in the corral. His injuries had healed completely, leaving only scars as reminders of their ordeal. He moved with the easy confidence she had always admired, gentle but firm with the nervous animal. As she observed him, Eliza's hand rested unconsciously on her stomach, where the first signs of their child were beginning to show. She hadn't told Nathan yet, wanting to be certain before sharing the news. But after missing her monthly courses twice and experiencing the telltale morning sickness, she could no longer deny the evidence. Nathan looked up, catching her watching him. He grinned and waved, then secured the colt before making his way to the porch. Admiring the view, Mrs. Kane. He teased, pulling off his gloves, always. She handed him a cup of water, which he drank gratefully. You have a way with horses. That colt was frightened of his own shadow last week. Just needs patience and a firm hand. He set the cup aside and pulled her into his arms. Something on your mind? You've had that look all morning. Eliza smiled up at him. What look? Like you're keeping a secret, a good one judging by your eyes. She laughed softly. So much for no more secrets. Taking a deep breath, she placed his hand on her stomach. We're going to have a baby, Nathan, in about 6 months if the doctor's right. Nathan's expression transformed from surprise to wonder to pure joy. A baby, you're sure? Dr. Wilson confirmed it yesterday, her eyes filled with happy tears. We're going to be parents. Nathan dropped to his knees, pressing his face gently against her midsection. Hello in there, he whispered. I'm your pa, I can't wait to meet you. Eliza ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. After all the waiting, all the pain and uncertainty, this was their reward: a family, a future built on love and trust. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Nathan placed his arm around Eliza's shoulders. I was thinking about what you asked me last winter, he said, about whether we'd have peace. Eliza leaned into him. And I think this is it. This quiet life we're building, the family we're creating, this is the peace I've been searching for all my life without knowing it. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Thank you for waiting for me. Always, she replied, the simple word encompassing all she felt, all she had always felt for the man beside her. As darkness settled over the land, they remained on the porch, watching the first stars appear in the velvet sky. The future stretched before them, full of promise and possibility, a future worth every moment of the waiting that had brought them to this perfect peace. 4 years later, Eliza stood at that same porch, watching as Nathan chased their 3-year-old son around the yard. James Edward Kane had his father's brown eyes and his mother's determined spirit, a combination that kept them both constantly on their toes. Papa, catch me, the boy squealed, darting behind the water trough. Nathan pretended to search in the wrong direction. Where did that boy go? He was just here a moment ago, James giggled, giving away his position, and Nathan swooped in, lifting him high in the air. Found you, little man, Eliza laughed at their antics, one hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. Their second child was due in less than a month, and Dr. Wilson suspected it might be twins, given how quickly she had grown. The Kane ranch had prospered in the years since their wedding. What had begun as a modest operation now employed 3 full-time hands and was known throughout the territory for its quality stock. Nathan had found his calling in breeding and training horses, while Eliza managed the household and kept the ranch's accounts with meticulous care. Silverwood Creek had grown as well, with new businesses and families arriving each year. Sheriff Morgan had retired the previous spring, and to everyone's surprise, Nathan had been elected to replace him. He took his duties seriously, but managed to balance them with his responsibilities at the ranch. Dinner's ready, Eliza called, and her 2 favorite people came bounding up the porch steps, equally enthusiastic about the prospect of food. Nathan kissed her cheek as he passed, James mimicking the gesture on her other cheek. Smells wonderful, Nathan said, washing his hands at the basin by the door. As they gathered around the table, Nathan said the blessing, his deep voice filling the cozy kitchen. James, seated on a stack of books to reach the table properly, watched his father with adoring eyes, trying to fold his small hands exactly as Nathan did. "Letter came from your parents today," Nathan mentioned as they ate. "Your mother says they'll be here in time for the baby's arrival." Eliza nodded. "Good, we'll need the help, especially if Dr. Wilson is right about twins." "Twins?" James looked confused. "What's twins, Mama?" "It means you might get two baby sisters or brothers at once," Eliza explained. The boy's eyes widened. "Two? Can I keep them both?" Nathan chuckled. "They're not puppies, son. But yes, if we have twins, you'll have two siblings to play with when they're bigger." After dinner, with James tucked into bed after 2 stories and 3 glasses of water, his nightly stalling routine, Nathan and Eliza sat on the porch swing, watching as a storm gathered on the horizon. "Rain's coming," Nathan observed. "Good for the south pasture." Eliza nodded, leaning against his shoulder. "Reminds me of the night you came back, riding in through the rain after all those months away." Nathan's arm tightened around her. "Best decision I ever made, coming home to you. Even with all the trouble that followed, even with that." He placed his hand on her rounded belly, feeling the strong kicks of the life or lives growing within. "Look what waiting brought us. Everything I could have wanted and more than I deserved." Thunder rolled in the distance, and the first fat raindrops began to fall, pattering on the roof above them. Neither moved to go inside, content to watch the storm approach, secure in each other's arms and in the life they had built together. "I love you, Eliza Kane," Nathan whispered against her hair. "And I love you," she replied, tilting her face up to his for a kiss. As the rain fell harder around them, they remained on the porch, sheltered and safe, a family forged through separation and reunion, through danger and deliverance, through patient waiting and faithful return. The storm that had once torn them apart now merely provided a backdrop for their happiness, a reminder of all they had overcome to reach this perfect peace. And in that moment, with rain washing the world clean around them, they knew with absolute certainty that some loves were worth waiting for, no matter how long the wait, no matter how hard the journey home.